Hi, welcome back to AJM Learn. So in this video, I want to show you specifically how to edit your header and your footer. That does sound oddly specific, but they're universal site styles. So I want to make sure that these get set up correctly. I thought they kind of deserve their own video. So let's dive in. On any page, I tend to do this on my home page, but any page, you can click edit. And depending on, you're probably in a template of some sort, but either way, it will look the same. Just hover over the header and click Edit Site Header. Once you're in here, you're going to see a lot's happening. So first, you set your site title and logo. So make sure this is accurate because it is what shows up in your browser bar. You set your logo here. So that's, of course, what's going to show as your logo. Always make sure it's cropped tightly. If it has a bunch of like blank space around it, you're going to get a lot of space around your logo. So, and you don't want like a big, huge, thick header taking up a bunch of space on your site. So you really want to keep that navigation bar like a little bit tighter. So your logo goes here. Next, you're going to choose your logo height. So you can play around with that again. I try to keep it, you want it to be visible, but people know where they are. You don't need a massive logo. So, be mindful of what your logo size is. So that's there. And then your mobile logo height. Now, something that bothers me, I love Squarespace, but sometimes it bugs me that things seem to be in the weirdest places. So for example, you have this entire mobile navigation site menu. So I don't know why the size would not be in there. But back to this little globe icon, back to site title and logo. This is where your mobile logo size is. So you kind of have to change it here and then like view the site and mobile and see if it works, which I think is silly. You can also change your mobile logo image. So if something just works better on mobile because it's much smaller, you could do like a smaller version, maybe I got rid of experience and maybe it just says AJM or something like that on mobile since it's showing much smaller. Okay, so that's all there. I'm going to go back. Next is elements. So this is what's telling it what all do we want to show here in the header. So you can add a button to your header. You can tell it what to say and then link it anywhere externally. It could like pop up for them to email you. You could send them to another website. The most common is to send them to a page on your site, typically your contact page, but that is there. So you can add that button. You can add your social links, toggle that on and off. Go into edit social links. Mine aren't showing up because I don't have any on here. So let's just, for example, you would actually, of course, paste your exact social link, hit enter, and it's going to pre-populate whatever those social links are right here. And again, you would put your own link, but I'm just putting basic ones here so you can see them populating. You can change those icon sizes here. You can also change these styles. So if you wanted them to, look a little different, you can play around with that. Language switch is pretty complex, but it's pretty new and really cool. So you can actually set it up to where someone can easily switch between languages on your site. It requires this extension and like a whole setup process, and I think a small fee, but that is there. It will prompt you, if you click on it, it'll prompt you to like go somewhere else and set that up. So it is more complicated than it looks right here. Cart, show or don't show your cart, depending on, are you an e-commerce site? Are you not, or you don't want to show the cart for some reason. And if you do show the cart, you have the options to choose what it looks like, what that keeps jumping around, what the size is, what it looks like. Yeah, all of that. You can say, do you want it to show the 0 or not? This is all a little bit new. So those are all the elements that are shown. I'm going to skip style and come back because that's the most complex. Fixed position. This is where your heading or your header follows you down the page. So as you scroll, this is what's telling your header to follow you down the page. Now, the shrinking logo is a bit of CSS I've used, but it's a really good one. But you can see how the header's following you, so you're never at loss for like navigation. You don't have to go all the way back to the top. So this is one of those that I do fixed position like 100% of the time. I really never think of reason not to. You can do it basic, which is what you just saw, or scroll back. What scroll back is when you start scrolling down, it disappears, but anytime you start scrolling up at all, it pops back in. So you have those options, but I always do fixed position. I really can't think of any reason not to. Style is where this gets way more complex. I've created an entire video just on some like how to do heading styles. So I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I will link that other video. But here you have the options of a solid header. So, you just have this solid color at the top. Yeah, and you can set the color, all of that. Gradient, which is where your header would kind of fade out a little bit toward the bottom. Theme is where it's going to basically react based on, I'm mixing them up. You choose one of your themes. Back in that design tab video we just talked about, these themes. And then, your last option is dynamic, which this is where it's basically reacting to the theme of your first section. So again, that's a little confusing. But like if I set this first section as white, you can see that the header changes with it. It can be nice to do that as long as your themes of your first sections are staying kind of consistent. Because if your first section on another page is white, well, like this doesn't really work because you're not seeing all the logo and you're having to like reset a lot of this. So again, much more detail in the video that I'm going to link about setting your the styles, but those are all there. But yeah, there's a lot of good options. Like solid's a really good one to go for, honestly, because you can set your opacity. So when you're scrolling, you can see through the header a little bit. You can blur it a bit. So there's some really good options in there. You can set a drop shadow. So there's some like less complex things. Okay, so if you click on the desktop, this is where you're setting your header layout. So right now I have like my logo in the middle, but you can play around with the layout like this and things automatically move around just based on what you need. This one's not my favorite. Never personally found a use case for that one, but you never know. Width, so you can set it to be inset a bit or full width. Here, I think this is based on your site padding, which we talked a little bit about in the design tab. I don't tend to do much here, but basically you could set it to where this all comes in a little bit further. But again, I think that's based on like your site padding. So I tend to not do a lot with that. Your vertical padding is how much space really is above and below your headers. So like this, I tend to do it like basically as minimal as possible because you don't want your header taking up like half your screen. Element spacing is a spacing between different types of elements. So like your button and your icons. So for example, you can see your cart icon, your button, and your social icons are spreading from each other. But then link spacing is like links spreading from each other. So your social links, or if it had multiple other links here. And lastly, your mobile styles. Again, I don't know why your like logo sizing isn't here, but it's not. But again, you can kind of choose the layout of your mobile style. You can choose your overlay menu. So is it centered? What is your link spacing? I only have one link right now, so it's not a great example, but you can space those out differently and also choose your colors here. You can choose your menu icon and the thickness of the icon. So pretty simple there. So that is your header. I'm going to discard changes just because I didn't want to make any crazy changes from on my in progress site. And last here in this video, we're going to talk about the footer. So again, go into edit, go down and click on edit footer. So again, I mentioned this, but always keep in mind your header and your footer are universal. So if you make a change on any page on your site, it's going to change it on every page of your site. So I don't know what's going on here. Your footer is kind of its own mini block. So your header is really specifically set up in all those settings, but your footer really is its own thing. So you can style this just like you would your page on the site. So you can add a block, you can add an image, text. I mean, anything you want, you can do in the footer. So the footer itself is, it's just like its own mini block. It's just that it's universal. Here, I've specifically done 2 footers. So I have this one with my newsletter, and I've added a second footer with all of my other information. So you can do that once you're in it. So let me go back to edit page. Once you're in edit footer, you can add a section, and it's going to actually offer you some like preset footer layouts. You can choose one, or you could totally just add a blank one. But you can do multiple footers like I've done here, and you can even, make them different colors, set the spacing, sizing, whatever you need to do there. But yeah, this is just how I've set mine up. Nothing really to note when it comes to style because this is fully customizable, but I just want to show you how to get into it and the fact that, again, always remember it is universal. So if you change anything anywhere, it'll change on your whole site. Okay, that's header and footer. I think that's relatively simple. Remember to watch that more in-depth header video that I've tagged just to give you a little more insight into those styles.